Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's been 7 months, I realized, since I've uploaded a video, and I feel like that's so long. That's like low-key messed up. Like, I should have been uploading stuff. I always said I was gonna vlog or blog or whatever, or just do like a week in my life. But honestly guys, life gets so busy. It gets so crazy, so busy. Like, okay. So yeah, I'm gonna continue on just my worship journey of how I started in worship. Also just my journey of like how things have gone, because there's a lot of ups and downs and a lot of things that I've honestly learned for myself, and maybe they'll even help you guys out. So I'm gonna go ahead and start. So when I was in elementary school, I remember us having our first school chapel, and school chapels were like that one service every few months that we had during the school year, and everybody would get together in the sanctuary and we would have church. Like, basically we'd have worship, a word, a skit sometimes and stuff. So I remember being young, like, and we would all go to the altar for worship and stuff, and I would stand in the front and I would just stare, like, because worship always had an effect on me. And I remember my friend Valerie, which some of you guys know her. She's now Val Gax. She just got married. She would always sing, and every time she would sing, like, God's anointing was on her voice. And I just remember standing there and like just being so consumed by God, His presence and stuff. And I would look at her and just be like, dude, like, I want to do that one day. I want to worship one day, just like she's doing. I want to like lead a song. Like, that was like the desires that were starting to form in my heart, but in elementary school. And I just remember looking at her and looking at the whole band and the worship team, and it's like, I just knew, like, I didn't know how that would happen. I didn't know how worship would become part of my life. I just thought of it as a dream that probably would never come true. And I just remember always singing with my twin sister, Glory, which you guys know her. And we would always make up songs. We would always, like, she would do like a rap and I would like sing like the girl part and stuff. We'd always make up songs, but I just remember always singing. And I remember growing up and stuff, I always wanted to do worship. Every time I seen Val or Danielle or the women in our church lead, they always inspired me to want to lead and just be involved in worship. But I never knew how I would be involved in it. It almost seems like a dream that you have in your heart, and it's so unreachable, like you don't know like how you're gonna get to that place. And I remember me growing up, and I was in ninth grade, and I remember sitting at my desk, and Miss Ibarra, one of our teachers, had came in, and she was like, look, she's like, we're gonna have tryouts for a kid worship team, I guess, or our Air Force worship team. And I remember like she's like, okay, come outside if you guys want to be part of it. And I was like, dude, I want to be part of it. But I was so scared, you guys, to sing in front of anybody. I would not sing in front of like no one. And if I did sing in front of someone, I would make them go down the street, turn around, and like cover their ears, because that's just how nervous I would be. And I just remember my friend looking at me, and she's like, you need to go try out. And I was like, dude, like, I can't. I'm so fearful, like, I just can't do it. And I remember her like pushing me out of my chair. She said, go outside. And she's like, you need to try out. She's like, if you don't go, you're gonna regret it. And I remember just thinking at my desk, and everybody ran outside to go because they wanted to try out and get the information. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna just try it. So I got up out of my seat. I went outside, and I was one of the last ones to go outside. They're already done like with their little like spew or whatever, what they were saying to try out. And I remember them saying, bring a song that you want to try out with, because we need to see where you're at. Like, we need to see like where your voice is at if you're gonna join our team. So I remember the next week on a Tuesday, one of those days, I remember all of our friends went to try out, and we all sang the same song, because that's how nervous we were. So we're like, dude, just sing the same song. We got this, we got each other. Like, let's just get this over with, basically. And I remember it was my turn to go, and I remember sweating and like being really nervous. Like, my voice was very shaky, and I felt like I couldn't like get a grasp on my words and stuff. And I just remember standing there, and I said, okay, God, and I closed my eyes and I sang the song, which to this day, you guys, I don't remember what song it is, but it was a song from Hillsong, one of their older ones. And I just remember singing, closing my eyes, and feeling a rush of God's presence like I've never felt before. And I felt like just different after that moment. Like, I just sang, and I remember opening my eyes and just like staring at everyone, and like everybody was staring at me, and I was just like, did that just like happen? Like, just the experience that I had. and everyone was like clapping and all this stuff, but I just remember not being the same after that moment. And from then on, I knew that I was called to do worship, like for sure. Like there's no doubt in my mind that I had to continue in this. So I started off from there, being in that Air Force band and just, you know, being faithful in it, singing all that we had to do, a little bit of older songs and stuff that we learned. But it was so awesome because it taught me kind of my first responsibility of being on a worship team. And it was hard at sometimes because, you know, some of your friends, like when you're in ministry, when you start out with them, they kind of start to like leave or do their own thing. So at the end of it, I just remember it being me and like maybe like two of my friends that actually had stuck it out. And I remember it was time for us to move on to our youth band. At the time, it was The Rise. And it was cool because that was like, you know, our age, our youth group that we actually got to lead worship for. So it was all your friends, you know, and he felt all cool because like you got to be on the band. And that was when I first started to really step out and lead in my songs that they would give me. And I remember we'd always sing the same ones. We'd always do like some, what's that one song, My Soul Longs For You, all that stuff. And it was that whole time, that was my first beginning of worship. And I remember it taught me so much. It taught me to practice, because practice is super important. It taught me to be on time. It taught me to watch the way that I lived and stuff like that. And you know what? It's crazy because in that time when I was in The Rise and stuff, like I didn't realize like what it was teaching me now for like the long run, now that I'm older in worship and stuff. So that was like how I started to do worship. And I just remember taking it like so serious, you guys. I should still do this, but I think you get more comfortable like kind of as time goes on and stuff. Like I remember being in The Rise, and God would just like really show me and like I guess convict me to take care of myself and my voice. And I remember just like every time I had to do worship on a Saturday, because that's when our services were, I would never drink milk. I wouldn't drink anything cold. Like I would watch what I eat. I literally like just stayed inside like the whole day. I didn't go out or anything like that. Like I just stayed inside the whole day because I didn't want nothing to happen to me. I didn't want nothing to happen to my voice because I wanted to be the best I could be for that night service. And I just remember God instilling that in me. Is like he wanted me to be the best I could be, so I would live in that way. And I remember my mom knew how serious I took it. I was like, Mom, like I'm not trying to be rude, but like don't bother me. I'm gonna listen to my worship music all day. And I remember I would stay in my room here. I'm at my dad's house right now. I would stay in my room and I'll be like, dude, like no one better bother me. Like I would just like want to like receive from God like that whole day. And I would barely eat anything. I would just eat like oatmeal and like soft foods and warm foods, because that's how serious like I was. Like I guess I took it in a way. Now it's not the same. I eat like whatever I want on the days that I sing. But I remember first starting out, there was just like this like thing, I don't know how to explain it, but like the seriousness I guess that I had, which I still wish I had. But you know, as you get older, like things change, I guess. But I just remember God showing me like just to be faithful in that ministry and stuff. And when I was in 11th grade, I had gotten sat down from that ministry, from worship in general. Like I had to stop doing worship for a whole year. It was a year and a few months. And to be honest, that year, when I first had gotten sat down and stuff, I was very devastated. I thought I had lost like everything, because worship to me was everything. I literally felt like I lost a part of my life, and I was so devastated. I was so heartbroken. But I knew that what I had did was the consequences was me getting sat down for it. And I remember when coming in, because you know, when you get sat down and stuff, you can't just like do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want because now you're not in ministry. You're not held to a certain standard. But one thing that my mom had told me is like, you want to continue in ministry. You want to continue in the things that God has for you. Now that you're sat down isn't the time to mess around. It's a time to get closer to God and still live the same way as if you were on that platform. And I remember when she told me that, I was like, man, like I can't do what I want. I can't do what I want now, you know? And me, I'm like, okay, I could slack off. I cannot go to prayer on time. I cannot go to all the youth services and stuff. But God showed me, now that you're not on platform, you need to be there even more. And I was so, honestly, it was weird for me because I wanted to just give up and not go. And I was like, I'll show them. I don't need to go to youth. I don't need to do all the rules that I used to do before. And God would convict me and say, you still need to live right, you know? And that was big for me. So I was like, you know what, as hard as it is and as unfaithful I want to be now that I don't have no responsibility, I still need to be faithful. So I remember for that year and a half, still going to church, still being on time, even when I felt so sad at the altar, I would cry and be like, I just want to be up there singing. God had humbled me a lot and showed me a lot about myself, you know? And finally, when I was able to go back, thank you, Jesus. I remember when I got the okay, man, my whole life, I was so happy. I just jumped back on to worship, and I haven't been set down since then. So that's awesome. God's kept me and stuff. So thank you, Jesus, for that. And as I continued and stuff, after youth, I had gotten into a new ministry at the time, and it was called Ignite. And I was only 17 at the time, but Ignite was for 18 to 30-ish year old adults. And I remember, you guys, this is so transparent now. When I made it onto that team, I thought I had made it, you know? I literally thought that I had made it. I was like, dude, I don't need, oh my God. Like, I'm literally on the team with like people older than me. Basically, I'm that good to be on the team. And I remember when I would lead for that team, I would get so prideful. I would get so like, look at me, basically. And I remember that's how I led for the 2 or 3 years that I was in that team. I led with pride, and I'm not even gonna lie to you guys, like that's just how it was. And I felt like I had it all, basically. And I felt like I didn't have to read, I didn't have to pray as much, because why? I felt like my voice was good enough to carry me through. And I only did enough to get by, which is so crazy. When I look back at the few years that I was in that ministry and stuff, I realized like how much time I wasted just singing, because now that I look back and I seen where my heart was, it was just singing. It wasn't worship, and I would try to do all these crazy notes. And I honestly, you guys, there was times where God was moving, I'm not gonna lie, but I know the intentions of my heart when I would sing. And I realized that it wasn't just me just worshiping, it was literally just because I thought I had made it and I got to lead all these songs. And what's crazy is they gave me all these songs to lead, and I realized that my heart was not in the right place, like leading them. It was more like, wow, I get this opportunity, like look at me, basically, you know? And it wasn't until we had moved on from that chapter, I had moved on from that chapter of Ignite to our main platform. So our main platform is the top worship team. Everybody on that team has been there for so long, but they're excellent musicians, excellent singers. So to make it on that team, my head was already big. When I made it to that team, my head got bigger, okay? And I remember when I had gone to that transition to that team, I didn't lead at all. I did not lead any songs. I led 2 in the beginning, and after I led those 2, I hadn't led. And I was like so confused, because I went from a season of leading and singing all the songs to not singing one, not even one on the list. And for 2 or 3 years, you guys, I did not lead anything at all. And at first I was so bitter and I was so mad. I was like, God, like I'm good enough to lead. Why aren't you letting me lead? And that was my attitude. Like that's literally what I was stuck in. Oh my gosh. Thinking about it, it was crazy. And you can tell it affected me because of my attitude. I was so negative, and I was like, oh, like she's flat all the time. I know I can lead that song. And it took me a good 1.5 years, literally 1.5 years, for me to finally realize that I was the issue, which is crazy, because that is like, God literally had to like open my eyes and like show me, praise, hello, it's you. Like your heart is so prideful, you're so negative, you're so filled with like bitterness and all these things. Like it took God a lot to show me that. And actually it started when one year I felt so tired of being sick and tired, if that makes sense. I was so tired of not leading. I was so tired of being negative. I was so tired of feeling overwhelmed. I was so tired of feeling like, man, like when's my chance? When's my chance? And I remember I woke up one day and I said, God, I'm tired of feeling like this. Like I'm tired of feeling like so worried about where you're taking me in worship. And I said, I feel so unhappy. I just feel so like I want to quit the team. And I said, and I in that moment, he said to fast. And I was like, God, like, I love food. Like, why are you talking about fast, you know? And I was like, dude, like, oh, and I just laid there on my bed and I was like, I don't want to fast. Because I knew that doing a fast is going to require sacrifice. And sacrifice to me at that time was like, no, like, I read and I prayed and all that stuff. Like, I barely did. But when it came to fasting, it was like out of the question. I was like, no, I'm not going to fast. But I remember just being at the end of I was so tired. I was like, why am I even on the team? I questioned my calling. I thought about leaving the church because I didn't lead. I thought about just maybe I can start somewhere else, somewhere new. Maybe I can start another worship team. Maybe I can, maybe they'll appreciate me more at another church. Maybe they'll appreciate my gift and let me lead there. That's literally where my mind was. And the devil was lying to me, making me think that if I left my church, that I would have better opportunities somewhere else. And I didn't realize that that was the biggest lie, because during the 2 or 3 years that I didn't lead, God was actually forming me to be who I am today. God was showing me things and I was going through these different situations of me being humble, me being grown. And yes, you're gonna have growing pains. That's literally what it felt like. Where I was negative and I was like, dude, I'm gonna leave, or dude, I can sing that song. All these thoughts that I went through, all the times where I just wanted to give up and cry at practice, and everybody asked me, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. But in my heart, I just knew I was so bitter because I couldn't lead, you guys, a song. I was at like such a bad place, and it's because the devil was lying to me, saying, you just need to get out of there. You just need to leave. Go across the country, go to that other church where you know that they'll give you opportunity. And I just remember being at that crossroad where I told God, like, I don't understand. I know I'm called to worship, but you're not giving me opportunities to worship. And I just remember him showing me that I needed to fast. So I was like, you know, God, I'll fast. I said, but you need to do something, like, basically, like, you need to show me what's going on. So I remember I went on a 3-week Daniel fast, and I did not cheat. I ate vegetables, I drank some water, and I ate some fruit. That was it. And I remember through those 3 weeks, they were the worst 3 weeks of my life. Okay, you guys, a whole bunch of stuff had happened, like bad stuff. And I just wanted to give up. And I said, God, like, when you fast, you're supposed to move, not like make me want to move away, like, you know, because all these crazy things that were happening. And I was just like, God, like, I don't understand. I do not understand. I fasted so you can move. And I feel like my whole life is literally flipping around. That's how it felt during this fast. And I just remember God, every time I wanted to give up, in those moments, I said, I'm just going to go eat a donut. Because my weakness was food, to be honest. I'm just gonna go to In-N-Out. I'm just gonna go to McDonald's, get my little snacks from the 99-cent store, and I'm just gonna give up. Like, fasting's not worth it. You're not moving. That's literally what I told God. And every time in those moments where I wanted to give up, God said, keep going, praise. And I was like, dude, and you know when you hear God's voice. And I said, you know what, God? Fine. I'm gonna keep moving. I'm gonna keep going and fasting until you move. So I remember the 3 weeks had ended, and I just remember at the end of the 3 weeks, I felt different. And I looked back at the person I was in those 21 days, and I couldn't even identify with that person. Like, I literally felt like I was so filled with hate before the 3 weeks. I was so filled with bitterness and just anger and hatred towards the worship team. Sorry, I had to burp. I'm so sorry, you guys. I was so just like stuck. And I felt like after the fast, like, God had brought so much clarity into my mind. He showed me about myself, of how, no offense, dumb I was being for being so bitter about not worshiping, being able to lead a song. And I just remember God has showed me, like, you don't understand how much you've missed because you've been stuck in this mindset of leading, when in the past year and a half, you could have been learning all of these things. So that was 3 years ago when I had first started. And I just, now I took the next year and a half to learn as much as I can. And I just remember after fasting, I just jumped in. When we came back from conference that year, because I did the fast right before a conference, I just jumped in. I said, okay, God, I'm going to give this the best I can be. If I'm going to be in the background, I'm going to be the best harmonizer I can be. I'm still going to be on time. I'm still going to go to prayer. I'm still going to learn all the parts just in case, you know. I'm going to be the best background I can be, because I know that's what you're trying to ingrain into me. And Lord, and I had to repent. I'm sorry for wasting that year and a half before. I'm sorry for just complaining and murmuring and just being so negative. I'm sorry for missing out on what you're trying to do in my life. So the past year and a half that I just been jumping in, okay, let's learn the song. Let me learn my part. Let me do my best, you know? And at times I'm like, God, like, I just want to lead. Like, I know I'm called to lead, not in a proudful place, but a desire to do it, you know? And I felt like my attitude was starting to change. And now, like, honestly, you guys, not until maybe like a month and a half ago, they started to let me lead again on that main platform, which is a big blessing, because man, that was God and also God's timing. And I look back, and if I would have gave up, I wouldn't have learned the things that God was trying to show me. And if I wouldn't have kept going, I wouldn't be the worship leader I am today. Not that I am the best, because I'm still learning, but I wouldn't have learned all those things from that season of me growing and me not leading, because it showed me so much. And now when I lead, I have a gratefulness for leading. Before, when I was on those other teams, I was like, yeah, I got this. Yeah, I got this. But now it's like, I want to lead. If this is my last time leading, I'm going to go all out. And now it's so crazy because I feel like I've grown so much. I'm still growing in worship and stuff. And worship is literally, for you guys, most of you guys know, but it's my life. It's been my life since I was 16. And God has just changed my life through worship. Remember when I was telling you guys about me being in elementary school and stuff, not knowing how I'm going to get to these places, God has literally took me from place to place. Everything that I've dreamt of since I was a kid has happened. I've gone out of the whole country to do worship. I've gotten different opportunities to do worship, to write music, to write worship for our church, to be on a young adults team, to actually encourage other people to worship at their churches and stuff. And these aren't things that I'm just saying because look at me, I get to do. But these are things that God has made happen in my life that I'm just still to this day blown away by. Like, I can't even believe the things that I've gotten to do and gotten opportunities to do, and just things that have happened in worship that's changed my life, that I know has changed the congregation's life. And I know for a fact that it's because I've been faithful all these years to God and to just ministry and just being on time and being faithful, even when you want to go hang out with your friends, even when you want to just not go to practice because you're tired and stuff. I just feel like God has been showing me recently how much He's blessed me because of all my years of being faithful to Him since I was young, you know, because I've always taken my ministry so serious, like, because it's my life. And I feel like that is like the best. So, man, you guys, my video is almost 30 minutes. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys can enjoy it, about my worship journey and stuff like that. And also just my encouragements on, if you are in worship, my last encouragement, if you are in worship and you do feel discouraged, or maybe you just feel like, man, like, why am I even on this team? Or I just want to give up, I just want to leave. Don't. Stay. Be faithful in where God has placed you. Even if it's just singing background, maybe they just got you singing background right now. Maybe you are a worship leader and you have to take over piano for a couple months. Maybe you are the bassist and you want to lead so bad, or maybe the drummer, you want to lead really bad. Just know that God sees your heart. He knows the desires of your heart. Keep Him first. Keep serving Him where you're at, okay? Be the best you can be where you're at, in the position that He has you now. And when if it's His will and when it is His timing, He will raise you up to be where you're supposed to be.